Alright guys, here we are today with another Dark Age battle report. Today we're doing 500 points. We have the Salt Flat Nomads versus the Core. On this side we have Landon, who is playing the Core Force. His army contains 3 menial bots, 1 recovery unit, a Chirurgian, a Legionnaire, Centurion, and 1 Locust that will be gliding deploying later in the game. My force contains a Berserker, a Fixer, Deadlock, a Wasteland Warrior. On the other side we have Bindahar and Dersh, another Wasteland Warrior, and then we have 2 Infiltrating Thornwinds. The scenario we are playing today is Ancient Secrets. And the basic premise of this scenario is that there is a relic counter that models are going to be able to pick up. At the end of every round, if you have the relic counter on your side, you will gain a victory point. If the model controlling the relic counter, though, is not in contact with the objective marker, he's going to start suffering damage. We start the game off by rolling initiative. I get an 8, Landon rolls an 18. Since I won initiative, I'm going to force Landon to activate his Centurion. Being that's the only alpha program unit in his army is going to have to center around it, so I'm going to see where he moves it. Landon squad links with Legionnaire and moves them toward the midfield. I've separated my forces into 2 sections, so I'm going to keep up with that and just see what Landon does. So for our first move, I'm going to move Bindahar and a Wasteland Warrior up to my left flank. Landon continues moving his units forward, keeping them in a tight bubble around his alpha program leader. I'm now going to begin moving my units up to the center, beginning with my Berserker. Landon activates his Chirurgian, moving it to his right flank. I'm going to continue to reinforce my center by moving a Wasteland Warrior up there. Making use of its Strider ability, Landon moves the recovery unit up to his left flank. I'm going to finish the round out by moving my Fixer up into the middle to support those units. Deadlock will hopefully be able to cover my right flank by herself. The Thornwinds now activate and move up, hoping to put some damage on the recovery unit. First shot needs a 10 due to range, and I fail with an 11. Next shot is a critical success, however, and the recovery unit takes a wound. The second Thornwind moves up, and having learned the lesson of the first, I'm going to take an aim shot. I roll a 2, and due to the Sniper 2 ability on the Thornwinds, that's a crit, which means another wound on the recovery unit. At the end of round 1, my primary thoughts on this is I need to deal as much damage to the recovery unit as I can before the bulk of his forces move up. If I win initiative this round, I'll activate the Thornwinds again and move up, utilizing their Proximity Strike 3 to hit most of his force as he's clumped them all together. Round 2 preparation phase, Landon decides to drop the Locust in right behind my line. Now I'll have to choose whether to deal with that or carry out my plan with the Thornwinds. When we roll initiative though, Landon wins 3-4, making my plans moot. Activating his Locust, he charges the Berserker and the Wasteland Warrior, putting 1 attack on each of them. He manages to hit both. I roll the armor save on the Berserker and save it with a 4. The Wasteland Warrior, however, is not so lucky and suffers a wound, only staying alive due to the Fixer. Continuing to split his attacks, the Locust once again manages to hit the Wasteland Warrior and the Berserker. The Wasteland Warrior now rolls her armor save, but fails on 18. She's dead. Landon then reveals his secondary objective, Surprise Attack, which states that he needs to kill a model that is not yet activated. That's 1 VP for Landon. I squad link Dersh and the Wasteland Warrior and activate the Warrior, moving up and attempt to reel in the Centurion with my zip gun. Seven sees a hit. Landon passes his armor save, just barely, with a 14. Rolling for pull, I get a 2. The knockdown is also a success. Now it's time for Dersh to lay down the pain. He activates, but just barely out of charge range, so he has to spend his first 2 AP to move up. First attack, I roll a hit. Centurion fails to save and suffers a wound. 2 more to go. Next attack hits on a 5, but the Centurion passes his save on a 1. One more attack, another 5. And of course, another passed armor save. Either way, I've pulled him away from the rest of the force, which means that the majority of his army is going to revert to Gamma programming, so the main goal was accomplished. Landon now activates his recovery unit, and having chosen the flamethrower upgrade, tries to burn my Thornwind to death. He needs 11, and of course he gets an 11 on the first Thornwind, following up with a 2 on the second. The first Thornwind passes their save but is now on fire. The second fails and is burned to a crisp. Oh well, that's at least a Vengeance counter and a Scavenge counter for me. The recovery unit then moves to an objective marker and picks up the relic. He'll need to die now. My Berserker is a bit angry at getting hit, and decides to take out some frustrations on the Locust. 2 attacks, 1 hit, 1 miss. Of course, Landon's luck streak continues and he rolls a 1 on his armor save. Attack number 2 gives me another hit and another miss. Finally though, Landon fails his armor save and the Locust dies, dropping yet another Scavenge counter. My Fixer will make use of those. Next up, Landon activates the Centurion. Let's see what it can do. First AP he uses to stand up. Next he chooses to use his Shield Slam Arc Attack. Natural 20 on Dersh. That's a miss and -1 AP. And perhaps I spoke too soon, however, as continuing the Arc Attack he manages to both hit and kill the Wasteland Warrior. Well, at least I'm racking up Vengeance counters. It's at this time I will note that I did forget to trigger Dersh's Blade Lord ability. Perhaps I was too happy seeing a 20. His next attack is a Rending Saw and Broadsword combination on Dersh. Both hit, and I attempt to parry the Rending Saw. With a 16, however, I fail my parry check. Continuing my bad luck streak, not only do I fail to save against the Rending Saw, but I then critically fail to save against the Broadsword. 3 wounds sees the centerpiece of my army killed. Things are not looking good. Well, at least that's another Vengeance counter. Okay, I need some victory points if I'm going to win this, so I'm now revealing Burn It Down, which means I need to destroy this objective marker. My Fixer is the first one in, moving around and picking up those Scavenge counters and finishing with a charge into the objective. Easily hits. Now I roll the armor save for the objective. It fails. 1 wound down, 2 to go. The minions now activate, and being outside alpha range, are forced to move up and engage my remaining Thornwind. The first menial succeeds in its attack, but my Thornwind fights him off. It's time for my Thornwind to activate. First things first, let's get rid of that fire. He successfully does so on a 10, and then proceeds to use her Splinter Storm attack, targeting all 3 menials as well as the objective. Menials are a pain, having 2 wounds. Hopefully this will allow them to be softened up so my remaining force can take them down and get them out of the way. After all is said and done, however, only 1 menial and the objective suffer wounds. Less exciting than I expected. Using her last 2 AP, she's going to disengage and fall back to my line. Continuing the Gamma March, Legionnaire moves up toward the front line. Deadlock is up next. She's not in range of anything, but moves into position for next turn. The Chirurgeon now moves up to cover the center, ending the round. At the end of the round, the recovery unit scores 1 VP from holding the relic. It's now 2 versus 0. I need to make a comeback because at this rate it's going to be very one-sided. It's so early, however, so we'll see what happens. Round 3 initiative, I win. Time for Deadlock to lock and load. It's a choice now between dealing with the menial bots or mowing down their recovery unit. But the longer I ignore the recovery unit, the more points it's going to score. I can't have that. It's a tough choice. I'll take my shots at the recovery unit. Using her No Mercy attack, I managed to roll a critical hit on the recovery unit, killing it outright. Easier than I thought it'd be. Now that's taken care of. I move her up and put down a proximity strike over the menials. Fortunately, due to the range, I only managed to cover 2 of the menials and the objective. After a hail of bullets, I managed to wound 1 menial, kill another, and finally take down the objective. Deadlock is my MVP so far. Landon's menials are now trying to take revenge on my forces. The Thornwoman fails her save, but the Fixer keeps her up. The next attack, however, hits, and of course, she critically fails and dies. That's 5 vengeance counters now, at least. The last menial activates and moves up, assaulting my Fixer. A wild swing with a 17, however, sees a miss. The Fixer is now going to get some revenge. Hitting with a 12, he manages to put the first wound on the menial. Continuing his assault, he misses, but due to jury rig, I can discard a scavenge counter to re-roll. And the menial is taken down. His last attack on menial number 2 sees another hit and another dead menial. Seems my guys are tired of dying and now decide to dish out some pain. The Legionary now decides to try to take down my Fixer, using all remaining AP to charge. And of course, manages to crit and put a wound on him. Centurion now moves up to try to finish off my Berserker, putting him exactly where I want him, assuming he doesn't kill my Berserker, of course. He attacks with the Rending Saw and Broadsword combination, only the Broadsword connects. I roll my save and critical success. Now it's time for the Berserker to rip and tear. His first AP, I'll trigger Berserk. His second one sees an attack critically hit and another hit as well. Centurion rolls his armor save against my empowered attack and succumbs to his last wound. Last AP, I now charge the Legionary. Berserker Rage! Two hits. One gets parried, unfortunately. However, I want that last one to hit really hard, so I'm going to discard 2 of my Vengeance counters to increase the power, bringing up to a staggering 11 times 2. This easily breaks through the Legionnaire's armor, killing him as well. Landon's last line of defense now is the Chirurgian, which he's now moving up to attempt to pick up the relic counter. He shoots Deadlock with his tether, reeling her into combat. Not a place she wants to be. End of round 3 has Lando 2 VP, myself at 1. He's lost a staggering amount of his forces though, so unless something goes horribly wrong, I think I can make a good comeback. Round 4 initiative, Landon wins. That doesn't look good for Deadlock. His first AP hits Deadlock once and deals her a wound. Second AP kills her off, of course with a critical armor failure. Landon now reveals counterattack, netting him 1 more VP. And with his last AP, the Chirurgian moves up, picking up the relic marker. My Berserker, still all Berserker Rage, uses all his remaining AP to charge the Chirurgian. Hitting once and missing once, the Chirurgian fails its armor save and suffers a wound. My Fixer now moves up as well, picking up some scavenge along the way. He takes a pock shot at the Chirurgian and manages to hit, but the Chirurgian succeeds on its armor save. At the end of the round, I reveal forward location, claimed by the Berserker. The score is now 4 VP, Landon scoring another due to the relic, and myself at 2. Round 5 initiative goes to Landon, and the Chirurgian lets in the Berserker. First attack, 2 hits. I managed to pass both armor saves. Next AP, 2 more passed armor saves. Last attack is 1 hit, and I fail my armor save, but I managed to check my PS check for Unstoppable. Berserker Rage! And now back to the true MVP of this game, the Berserker. He lands a 6x2 hit, but the Chirurgian shrugs it off. Unable to control his anger though, the Berserker crits the Chirurgian, killing it and allowing me to reveal Call to Glory. My Fixer now activates, moving up and claiming the Infiltrate objective, bringing the totals to 4 VP versus 4 VP. It's the end of round 5, Landon has no models left, meaning I am uncontested to complete any remaining secondary objectives I have. My draw reveals Scavenge Supplies, which I can easily complete to net me at least 1 more VP before the 8-round timer is up. We call the game with the Nomads winning 4v5, and that concludes this 500-point game of the Salt Flat Nomads versus the Core. From everyone here at Dark Age, we'll see you next time.